Good morning.
Good morning.
To pardon my voice, I woke up with a scratch yesterday. I don't know what got into me, but I'm Cornell Runestad. I'm the choir director here at Doane. If you don't know, my dad, Cornell Runestad, to my right, your left. This is his session. This is a reprise of a session that Cornell did a couple of times, or just once. Years ago, he had a handout which has kind of been hanging out on the filing cabinet in his downstairs study for a long time. I've seen it, and I never went to it myself, so I'm looking forward to what we're all going to hear today from him. To my left is his granddaughter, my daughter, Avery. Cornell, my dad, retired in 1995, and Avery wasn't born until 2007, so she missed any opportunity she could have had to see her Papa Cornell doing what he loved to do and what he so excelled at. So I hope that you will give our family the small indulgence of letting Avery be a little involved today. She's going to read the Bible verses, the commandments, and then Papa will comment upon them. Avery is a rising third grader at Adams Elementary, and as we have been practicing these just when we got started, a couple weeks ago, she said, Papa Cornell knows a lot of big words. So, she has done great. Avery's going to do the reading, and as long as I'm just here to make sure that Papa can hear okay, because this sound system isn't pointed toward us, and so just make sure that everything goes well. So, do you have anything, Dad, you want to say before we get started?
I'll give you my 30-second bio. I was raised in northern Minnesota, 15 miles from the Canadian border. And when I told my college kids or high school kids that I was from the boonies, I really meant it. I'm a graduate of Cornell College in Moorhead. Same for Paul Christensen. Master's degree from the University of Minnesota, and a doctorate from the University of Illinois. I taught 10 years in high school, and that's where I learned my craft, as many of you are doing. After 10 years in high school, I taught at Cornell College as an assistant to Paul Christensen, and I was interrupted by employment with Uncle Sam as a corporal in Korea for 15 months, and came back and resumed my teaching, and spent the last 25 years of my career at Wayne State.
So with that, we'll begin.
1. Start on time.
Maybe we should all be a little stricter about starting and finishing on time. It's just the discipline of the thing. It's the beginning of the discipline of the choral experience. Start on time.
2. Make a work plan with a definite time schedule and stick to it.
I hope you all do it. I hope you have a work plan that's on the board every day, in order that you're going to do it, and stick to it. It's not always easy, is it?
3. List sections to be rehearsed on the board in order.
A favorite score preparation trick of mine with a new piece is to set it on the piano and sing through all the parts. And if you have the slightest hesitation about some part, put a little check mark by it. If it's a slight hesitation for you and me, think what it is for your singers. And after you do that a few times, maybe a few dozen times, you'll be amazed. You can pick out the tough spots right away.
4. assistants take roll. Set up rehearsal room and do library work.
I hope you're not doing work in your daily choir rehearsals that your students can do. Roll call, library work. I just sort of cringe when I see directors going around passing on music. Kids can do that so well, and they can help you out so much in that way. I'm sure you're aware of that.
5. Don't just warm up. Vocalize. Great sounding choirs get their finesse vocalizing.
I kind of cringe when I observe choir rehearsals and it's beginning and students are rushing into their chairs and we're singing, and I'm not sure that singing is doing this much good. It doesn't seem like it's focused, it doesn't seem like it's centered. There's music coming out of the voice box, but beyond that I'm not sure. Plan your warm-ups carefully.
6. Stand occasionally and use various seatings, including scrambled and circle.
I come out of that Minnesota Lutheran tradition, and singing outside of that formation just seemed to be anathema. I finally did it in the last 10 years of my conducting, and we would sing the last group of our concert in scrambled formation. It's a wonderful experience. Or in a circle surrounding people in the auditorium. Kids like it. The best musicians like it the best. Those who aren't quite yet independent kind of blink a little when they hear all these other parts around. But it's a very good variety. Pitch invariably improves, I think, in scrambled formation.
7. Circle in advance which notes each part will miss. Watch those notes carefully.
Yes. My piano teacher, I was a piano and a voice major at Concordia. My piano teacher said, no matter what piece we study, there are always 4 or 5 places that are especially troublesome, irksome. And I think that holds very true into the choral rehearsal. When you made that little pencil mark as you were reading through the piece by part the first time, those are the places that need to be worked on. They need to be isolated and repeated and learned that way, and then put back into the total musical texture. I just find that's just a commandment of singing. Every piece that you put in front of your kids has a couple of tough spots, and they need special attention. And so that precludes, let's go through this piece again.
8. Center your attention on the group, not on your score. Know the music.
My dad was a Lutheran pastor, and he said one of the great temptations of the ministry was to welch on the sermon prep time, and can that ever be carried in to the rehearsal? Your career as a choral musician also indicates that you will be spending a lifetime studying scores. And if you're not studying scores enough, you're not allowing your students to grow. We used to count pages sometimes of our spring concert, and it often went between 120 and 140 pages. That's a lot of music to memorize. You are committing yourself to a lifetime of choral music study. If you welch on that, you have yourself to blame.
9. Do not start with ready, go, or 1, 2, 3, go. Say nothing as in a concert.
Is there any one of us who haven't done that? Well, we do it maybe dozens of times in every rehearsal. But it doesn't make much sense, does it? To say ready, go in the rehearsal when we're preparing for a concert and we wouldn't think of saying ready, go. Just try it sometime. Discipline yourself to not say that for a whole rehearsal. It maybe really cramps your style. Mine too.
10. Sing for, but not with, the group. Demonstration is often the best way to make a point.
If you're not a voice major and are reluctant about singing for your kids, don't be. You can still be a consummate demonstrator of some kind of technique. My director, Paul Christensen, was a ghastly singer. He said the only reason he got in the Senate Hall choir because his dad conducted him. But he was consummately good at demonstrating, especially with placement of sound and vowel color, and was extremely effective. Though I don't think, I can't imagine him singing a solo. You can do that. You can use your voice in a very effective way, even though you don't consider yourself a soloist.
11. Talk little, sing much. Record rehearsals to check your efficiency.
Have you taped a few rehearsals and calculated the amount of time that singing is taking place versus the amount of time that you as a director are talking? It's very revealing, and it's very, it's saddening. I did it a number of times and just can't get over how much I needed to stop talking and sing more.
12. Teach principles, not just specific cases.
There's so many solid concepts of singing that bear repeating. For example, how you treat the final consonant at the end of the word. We would go down the line sometimes at the beginning of the year especially, and just sing one word with the emphasis on putting the final consonant, like gone, come. Students can really easily learn that, but they won't ever do it automatically.
13. Teach sight singing, not just pieces. It's your sacred duty.
Some of you know that I'm very committed to the sight singing series Melodia. In my medical singers, a group of 18 to 20, I had a sight reading requirement. You had to sing for me personally the first 20 pages of Melodia to belong to that group. It was something of a job for many of them. And we did that in numbers or letters. And the first 20 pages of Melodia covers most of the major keys. And so that we know that there's a basic degree of musical literacy going on. And I would often just put things on the board, just a little 3-4 bar phrase, and have them sing it as a warm-up, maybe by section, maybe by pairs, but show them your commitment to learning to be a musician. Shaw, when he was auditioning singers for the Shaw Corral, had them read in immovable dub. And he said that if a person can sight read, he's probably good enough to sing in his choir.
14. Sense if group becomes tired or inattentive and then vary your plan.
Well, we've all beat pieces to death, haven't we? By golly, we're going to learn this today, or there's going to be casualties and the blood's going to flow. And nothing really gets done, does it? And we need to just back off and find a new way, more score study.
15. Don't work one piece or phrase too long. After a point, it won't accomplish much.
Right. It's so hard to let go because we know how to do that phrase. We know what the trouble is, and by golly, if we know it, they're going to know it. And it's pretty counterproductive, isn't it?
16. Cycle sing tough phrases over and over without breaking pulse. Real time saver.
Cycle singing is a wonderfully efficient way to teach to teach the music, and it's quick. You can cycle sing by section. You can cycle sing men against women, or however you want to do it. I try to tell my singers that I may ask you to sing along, and if I do that, it's never a punitive measure. If I do that and find out what your problems are, I can therefore help you more. And so I have, some days we do go down the line. Paul Christensen was famous for that. You could hear the heart palpitations, you know. It'd be once through, and if the alto section was bad, we'll hear the alto section sing it, and maybe twice. And then sometimes, especially on Fridays, if that didn't work, then it was down the line. And it was like having a weekly heart attack.
"17. Do not repeat a phrase for notes only. Achieve more than that."
Yes. We've all said, let's do that phrase again. But it would be much better if we'd say, let's do that phrase and find the apex of the phrase and do the phrase better.
18. Elaborate directions before starting will invariably be forgotten.
Boy, haven't we done that? Wow. Get this new piece out. I got this big, long dialogue about whatever. What Mozart did in Salzburg or what. And it goes on, and it's totally for naught. They're not ready for that. Better to take that speech, no matter how good it is, and use it at 5 different places on 5 different days, and we'll be much better off. We need to have some directions, of course, but take it easy.
19. It's okay to speak directions and corrections to choir while they are singing.
Yes, I think it's just fine to speak when they're singing, and to sing something at them at a particularly difficult place. The hard thing to do is to not keep singing. We need that as a temporary infusion and not consistent. Have you heard choirs where you can hear the conductor singing? Wow.
20. Give special attention to male voices. They make or break most choirs.
Oh. I don't think in my 40 years of conducting, I ever had a choir where I thought my male voices were better than the female voices. I don't know how that stacks up with you. And it's kind of irrelevant because we all have to sing 4 parts or more. And I've had some very good men's sections, but just never as many singers. And out in the public school area and in the college area too, it's pretty important what your male singers can do. Go out and get those athletes.
21. Do not fall into a fixed pattern of rehearsal procedures.
We all have our patterns of work, but let's make sure that they're not so ingrained that the kids know, well, in 2 minutes now we're going to do this. Find some creative ways for variety, and that again will go right back to studying the score. Study that score. You're committed to a lifetime of score study if you're going to be a choral musician.
22. Sing tough melodies on long tones, ignoring rhythm.
Oh yes. Find those tough spots, the spots that you pencil checked when you were studying the score, and find different ways to do it. Doesn't always have to be in the rhythm. It doesn't always have to be with the text. Find ways to vary that. A lot of your creative activity is finding creative ways to teach kids.
23. Speak or chant tough rhythms, ignoring pitches.
The tough places that you're trying to attack can be attacked in many ways. Without the rhythms, on long tones, you could have each section work that way. You know how to do that.
24. Don't work one section for a long time while others sit. Use sectionals.
If you have a chance to use sectionals, and some of you will, it's a great help to get the nuts and bolts out of the way. The big Minnesota Lutheran choirs need 5 days a week in full rehearsal, and then they also need 2 days a week in sectional, and that's how they get through a pretty prodigious program of memorized music. The sectionals are run by students, usually, and sometimes a piece would be passed out, and in the high standard of those choirs, passed out on a day of sectionals, and then you go back into the full rehearsal, and they expect it to go. They expect the notes to be there. Well, that's not the real world. That's just, it won't happen that fast for you, but sectionals are. And you all have, I think, good enough singers to choose one to do you some real good in the matter of sectionals.
25. Perhaps try ridiculous fermatas, retards, and dynamics to stress attentiveness.
Do you ever conduct a piece crazy and make them, they enjoy that. Putting in an extra fermata, putting in a cutoff, making them respond to you in a different way than it should be, and then put it back in the context where it should be.
26. Don't have anyone sing high or loudly for a long time. Try silent singing.
Yeah, I think every choir should sing high and should sing loud sometime during their rehearsal. But be careful. Be careful how you do that. As I've listened to a number of sessions here, one thing I haven't heard about the technique of singing is I haven't heard the word tension. And tension is in 99 out of 100 singers of some way. And there's a quote from the Clippinger book on singing that I used to have in my office. It was about so high. And it says, the first function of the voice teacher is to remove tension from the act of singing. And since many of you are the voice teachers in the community, then it's your responsibility. You can learn to sing loud without tension, but almost every singer that I see, standing or singing, exhibits some kind of tension, often in the jaw, often in the inhalation, the throwing back of the shoulders, often in the tension of the arms and the hands. You can find that. And if you can remove tension, you're absolutely guaranteed to get a better sound. So when you're singing loudly for that period of time during your rehearsal, be especially careful about tension and the removal of that.
27. Avoid vague generalizations like with more feeling and get with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's sing this again with more feeling. There are so many things you can say that can help them so much. I just tried never to say, well, let's sing through this once more. Once in a while we need to do that just for the sake of continuity or something, but let's do it once more, and let's be more careful about the last note of the phrase. One of my most often used sentences in music is take the weight off the last note of the phrase. Take the weight off the last note of the phrase. And if you wonder about that, listen to a good recording. Listen to any recording, virtually. Listen to the slow movement of Mozart or Haydn, and how elegant it is at the end of the phrase if that's done just right. But it's hard to do, and it needs to be taught and to be retaught and reminded all the time.
28. Explain improvements as specifically as possible so singers know just what to do.
Yes, while you're doing music and you're trying to teach, take the weight off the last note of the phrase. You can demonstrate that if you want to. If you're any kind of a pianist, you can play 5-1 and take the weight off 1, where you have a little two-note phrase. There are any ways to teach it, and that would be a place to bring maybe a good choral recording in, or a good symphony orchestra, and let them just concentrate on the last two notes of the phrase. It's always right there. In fact, sometimes, as I listen to symphony recordings, I think it's too much. They do it so well, and I think maybe overdo it, where you can almost not hear that resolution. So there's almost nothing on the last note of the phrase. But that's rare. You won't find that in high school choirs.
29. Conduct patterns, not words. Another conductor should be able to lead your choir.
Oh, conduct patterns, not words. Have any of you heard the Hallelujah chorus done? And it's conducted, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Have you heard that version? Yeah. Don't do that. It's just very sophomoric. It's just you'll never find it done in a good ensemble.
30. Work on difficult or newer pieces when fresh, near beginning of rehearsal.
Do the tough stuff first. We tried to do a very difficult piece each year, a piece that maybe other choir directors would hear it and say, "Boy, I don't think I can do that. That's pretty tough." That kind of music was very hard for us. That was a measure by measure battle, and it often took maybe most of the year to do those. But they're very rewarding. They're in the repertory, and college choirs especially, who need to be aware of their leadership roles, should do that. We need to hear choral music. Maybe that's too hard for us. There's a great value in that too. And I think it's okay to maybe have one piece a year that's just too plain tough for us. We need to learn how to struggle, and there's great value in fighting that kind of a war. And I think when you get it done, singers are very proud of it. And we assume, of course, it's a good piece of music and worthy of concentrated and dedicated study.
31. Begin and end with up-tempo pieces choir knows for feeling of accomplishment.
Sure. It's fun to use a good piece that you know for a warm-up. That's a perfectly legitimate way to do it too. And I love to end the choir rehearsal with a big banger, we always call them. Something that they know and is immediate and that they've learned to love.
32. Use full range of dynamics. Any done choir can sing loudly.
Learning to sing softly is a whole world of its own, and it's very difficult. And I don't find many choirs where I enjoy their soft singing. It's not supported. It often has pitch problems connected with it, and it has a sort of it doesn't have any excitement. It's so hard to go and then sing pianissimo. That's a good way for you to build your own kind of warm-up too. I didn't have a set bunch of warm-ups. I had just often made up new warm-ups every day, working on something, and certainly working on soft singing is that way. very difficult. Almost always the projection is lost and the pitch is gone, and it's just kind of, well, it's pretty uninteresting.
33. Watch releases. Final consonant on proper beat. Any dumb choir can start together.
The kind of choir you have is a result of your musical needs. I've heard choirs that just, well, blow your brains out. We used to say that the Concordia choir with Paul Christensen was the loudest choir on earth. His musical needs were extensive. And when his eyeballs started to bulge, I mean, you better be ready to give a little more. At the same time, there are other choirs that I call nymphs and shepherds choirs. They're just absolutely delicate, and they wouldn't force a note. They just wouldn't do it. And as a result, for me, there's a great deal of emotion lost. I like to sing almost as loud as my choirs are able to. Because if you get over that top range, the tone is almost always lost, and you're forcing. But boy, I mean, I like it loud, but I like it soft too. Let's try to do both, and find those limits within the measure of the people that you have singing for you.
34. Realize poor tone production is probably the biggest cause of flatting.
I say to you, and I used to say it to my choirs too, that every rehearsal is a voice lesson. At Wayne State, we probably never had more than 1/3 of the singers who took voice lessons. Many of you are in communities where you are the voice teacher, and you need to think about that. And every so many simple ways there are to improve sound, especially attention to good vowel production, to make that sound beautiful. And if you can't think of anything else, I used to say, couldn't we just make that more beautiful? We're just not quite in the beauty range there. We've got kind of the notes and it's kind of there. But sometimes just a general plea like that will work,
35. When choirs sing softly, expect them to flat, slow down, and lose precision.
Right. Singing softly is death on intonation. It almost always falls. And sometimes I've just done the really obvious, and in a soft passage, have them sing it loud, and the intonation will improve. Unfortunately, that's not the way you can sing it in the public. But
36. Put vowel on the beat, not consonant, or attack the sound late.
I think there's been a great improvement in this part of the choral art in the last 2 years. We all know if we're singing the first movement of the Mass that it comes out that we hear that initial consonant separated, totally separated from the ensuing music. In the case of that, and also with consonants, both initial consonants and and final and intermediate consonants.
37. Watch that descending skips and descending scale passages do not flat.
I have a sentence that I'm going to say to you twice. The descending half step is the most abused interval in Western music. The descending half step is the most abused interval in Western music. We have to identify those things. The first year I got into the Concordia choir, we were singing a Bach motet, and I was asked, my half step must have been pretty lousy, and Paul Christensen said, I want you to take that score home, the Bach motet, Be Not Afraid, and mark every descending half step in the whole piece. Occasionally we'd take an electronic tuner, put it on top of the piano, and have a student sing, and see if they can stop or turn that needle around. Can you sing a half step that's too small? Kids can see that. They can see that technologically and electronically, and they're just mesmerized by it. That nobody has ever asked them to do that with their voice before. It's all a part of manipulating the sound that you make, and the sound that you make is controlled by the mind and by the ear. Try it sometime. Everybody's got an electronic tuner, I suppose. And, yeah.
38. Keep thirds and leading tones high and lower neighbor tones too.
Of course, any interval is troublesome, but the upper neighbor notes, in general, think of ascending intervals large and descending intervals small. It's a great generalization, and it will work and it will help. And you can build any kind of a vocalize you want out of that. Ascending major thirds or descending minor thirds. Or
39. Watch intensity of tone on long notes and last notes. Don't inadvertently decay.
Do you do long note warm-ups to be able to get that note and to be able to hold it and hold it and hold it? Sometimes we played a trick. Okay, this piece is in B flat, and let's sing the first two pages, and let's see if we can move the music up. Are we good enough to shave those intervals careful enough so that we can move it up? That's really hard to do, really hard to do.
40. The high voice sounds louder, so use pyramid balance with low voices stronger.
Yeah, for the first couple of years at Wayne State, I stood the men in the front because I had fewer men, and they didn't like it very well either. But in terms of balance, what could be more sensible than put the powerful sopranos back in the third row a little and make them sing through that bass sound? So I'm a great believer in that great pyramid of a good, solid bottom, and not too much on almost every choir I hear. I personally think that a little less soprano would be just fine.
41. Many pieces have one major climax. Find it and do it, and keep the rest relative.
It's true. You should know the piece in its entirety and see that, wow, here on the top of page 4, that's where we're aiming for, and from there on, that's where we have come from. And I would also say that that's true in a segment of pieces in group 3. That in somewhere there may be some place that's just surpassing, and that's where you're aiming, and your audience will know if you've done that well, and that's where I might really break out of the conducting mold. And you know, I used to watch Bernstein as a conductor, and Bernstein's moment of ecstasy was this. And I would use that once or twice during a concert. That would really wake people up.
42. When skipping from low to high, be sure the high note is not too loud.
We used to vocalize my sopranos by just singing 5-note scales, maybe starting on, well, anywhere, and make them sing each one softer. And you can teach them to do that too. We sang at Luther College one year, and Weston Noble said to me, I thought it was a compliment. He said, "How do you get your sopranos to sing so softly up high?" I said, "Well, we just ask them every day and vocalize that way."
Just once a day?
No, everybody comes in after school.
43. Take the weight off the last note of a phrase.
Take the weight off the last note of the phrase. It's, a bandman taught me that, and I've used it so much, and it's a hallmark of good choirs. If you don't phrase well, if you don't end well, you're still aspiring. But it can be done, can be taught. But it kind of goes against the breath system, and it goes against how we would naturally sing it. Like, hallelujah, yeah. Can be done.
Speaking of which.
44. Avoid accent on final syllable before a quick breath, especially on hallelujah.
We've all been yucked to death every Advent and Christmas season, haven't we? Yeah.
45. Brighten the voice as it moves lower. Mellow the ascending voice.
The lower you sing, the brighter you sing. The basis of the Concordia choir, usually there were 10 to 12, and most of them had a low C. And when you sing down, when you sing descending scales, don't cover it up. Don't cover it up. But get it, the lower you sing, the brighter you sing. And the higher you sing, you have to cover it up some.
46. Maintain a pulse through rests, retards, and final notes. Pieces rarely just stop.
Yes. The grand pause that you often see in Handelian choruses, for example, most of those are really pretty rhythmic. You could pretty much rhythm your way through that. the idea of the pulse on final cadences and things. I think that's coming up. Okay.
47. Sudden, abrupt dynamic changes are also rare. Do them with discretion.
Yes. Sudden dynamic changes are very rare. I think, for example, that when choir sings staccato, that it's always too short. They think of staccato as short, brief, and I like to think of staccato as just total separation of notes. The next time you want to required to sing staccato in a piece, be careful that it doesn't get too short. It's just a stylistic mistake.
48. Know style, teach style, and historical awareness. Go back to school.
I guess what Shaw says, he says it's axiomatic that if you're a good choir director, you sing in a good choir. And I think that's very true. I think the experience I had as an undergrad singing in a highly disciplined choir is just unbeatable. It's just nothing like it. At the same time, you need to go back to school. And I don't mean taking a class online. I mean going back and digging into good rehearsal techniques, literature, style features. You committed yourself, I hope, to a lifetime of study. The good choirs, seems to me, always have good directors. And that's where I want you to be.
49. Don't make last chord of piece too short. Young conductors usually do.
Yeah, there should always be a sense of finality to what you do. The last phrase should be different. It should be distinctive. It should be characteristic of the feeling of something coming to an end. And then there should be maybe a loving lingering on the last note, if it's a soft piece. And then there should be a little moment of quiet to lead your audience into those kind of musical experiences.
50. To many and many styles, the important thing is to shape phrases expressively.
I often just put an arc on the blackboard. That's really the way most phrases are. They start softly. They make some kind of a statement. There may be a top note there, and then they usually finish that way. Very, very much of our own singing often happens to be just, and it's not satisfying, and it's not musical.
51. Don't make your choir grim or be grim. If the singers feel joyous, let it show.
Right. I hope that your singers will show the joy that they find in music. Many choirs are just kind of death masks, you know, just they're paying attention and they're looking straight ahead, and it looks like it's really not very much fun. Let them show it. Let them show it. If the spirit of the music is to come out anywhere in your singers, where does it have to come from? From the face. From the face. And I encourage you to let that show, and let your singers be involved totally in the great text that they have.
52. Plan no more in a season that rehearsals allow. Avoid unreasonable time demands.
Don't overbook. A lot of us do that, and put a great deal of stress on our singers to do that. Try to find a sensible program for the year, one that will challenge and one that will make them work hard, but not an impossible.
53. Can you expect your choir to sing concert by memory while you conduct with music?
I'm pretty fond of saying, if you're a choir director, you should be conducting from memory, and that will take maybe more time, but it's pretty hard to refute the statement. I have 40, 50 high school people in front of me, and they're doing it from memory. And I'm the musician of the town. I'm the town choir director, I'm the voice expert, and I'm conducting with music. It just doesn't look right to me. It just never has. I think to do it from memory, for one thing, just implies our reputation for the score. I'm fond of saying, now the piece is memorized and it's half learned. It's half learned. And I earnestly ask you, if you're not conducting from memory, to begin to do so. Do so 1 or 2, 3 pieces at a time. And pretty soon, you can do it all. It does take a lot of study. It does take a lot of study. But I think it's your really firm responsibility.
54. How true is this of you? There are no poor choirs, just poor choir directors.
Well, that's a hard nut to swallow sometimes, isn't it? But I think if you look around in the musical world, you'll find that that's true. That I don't think I can name a choir that I ever heard that I thought was a really good choir, that I didn't have a lot of respect for the conductor or knew that he or she was very competent. The buck does stop right there on that podium.
55. End on time.
Oh, yeah. It's my worry in doing this was covering 55 points in 50 minutes. That's a tough job. Any questions?